Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dubcast with Dubside. I'm Andrew Olazaga, here with Dubside. How are you doing today?
I'm good. So last week we took a break, so I'm hope everybody's back for after that rest for to hear some more.
So, what have you been up to?
So I'm in Virginia at the moment, and I've been doing some paddling on my own, and it's very nice.
Yeah. You know, this is really the best time of the year, I think, to go kayaking.
It is, yeah. The water is still relatively warm, and the leaves are starting to change in some places. So you got
Yep. Yeah,
beautiful
you get
foliage. Yeah.
the color, and the water gets clear because around here all the seaweed clears away.
All
And
right.
it's great dry suit weather, kind of mid 60s, get a little bit of
All right.
unstable weather once in a while. Makes it interesting, very
All right.
pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got planned this weekend?
Tomorrow I'm doing some instruction. A friend of mine lined up some couple students for me to work with rolling on. So, and then the next day, some of my other friends they're going out to the to Annapolis, to the Chesapeake Bay out there. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that or not, but the weather's nice, so I'm going to get in all this good paddling while I can.
Yeah, that sounds actually really nice, Annapolis. I've only been there
Yeah,
a couple times, but it's a really cool town with that long history of sailing tradition.
yeah, that's true. So, have we got any more
Feedback. Okay,
feedback?
let me take a look here. C. Terrell, 1 week ago, this was at Greenland and Tivoli. You've inspired me to
Okay,
look at visiting Copenhagen for the next Greenland and Tivoli event,
cool.
whenever that happens. Thanks.
All right.
Pat Garrett, 1 week ago. Dubside, it was good to see you at the gathering. It was quite a challenge throwing the harpoon while sitting on the ropes, wasn't it?
Did you hear about? Did you know what he's talking about there?
No.
we
Was
we
it?
I, we made this new innovation.
Okay.
so, Sipka he's the partner of Renee, who she's the organizer who just turned it over to a new organizing team. So Sipka, they both went to Greenland, and that was a couple years ago. Had a great time, and he's always big on the harpoon. So the Minnesota event, he's always got some harpoon contest that he has people do, and he has a prize for that. And he's very much into to that aspect of the Greenland thing. Which other events, there's more interested in other, rolling or racing things, but he's got that harpoon thing going on at Minnesota. So this time there's a rope set up there, and there's trees right next to where they have the campfire thing. And I usually do a demonstration like Friday before dinner or Saturday, so people come around there. We have the rope set up, and I, go to the audience. I go through the whole demonstration.
Hmm.
We have people trying it, and so Sipka brought over the harpoons, and he just said, "Hey, we could sit on the ropes, like the Qaqortoq position. We sit in
Mm-hmm.
between the ropes and throw the harpoon from there." Because if you're sitting on land, like if you're standing, you can throw it farther, but it's not, in a kayak, you don't have your feet to work with. So you sit on the ground to throw a harpoon on land. But then we figured, well, if you're sitting on the ropes, you give it a little more of that, rocking sea kind of
Mm-hmm.
unstable thing, a little bit. Not, it's more side to side than back and front. So we did it. So we sat on the harpoon on the ropes with throwing the harpoon, and there were people that never would have got on the ropes who wanted to try it, get on the ropes and throw the harpoon. So we had a new innovation there.
That's sounds like a real challenge. I mean, it's hard enough to throw the harpoon.
Yeah,
Um,
we had a pizza box for a target,
hmm.
and the box was never hit. there was some close shots, were real close shots, but nobody ever hit the pizza box.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you, how did you become a musician? How did that all get started?
Oh, I played guitar as a kid. Learned about guitar, and then I went to an audio school in New York after some college. So there was this Institute of Audio Research, it's
Hmm.
called, and they have a 1 year program. It's loosely affiliated with the New York University, and it tells you, sound engineering, whether it's studio or live sound. That took me to Philadelphia. Where I knew some guys who were going to have a recording studio, and I worked there for a bit, then got into the live sound stuff. But that plugged me into the whole sound thing and the music thing, kind of.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Were you ever in a band?
I was never in a full-fledged band. I hung out with musicians. A lot of times they had their own band, and so I would be the sound man. Guest
Yeah.
appearances now and then. Yeah, but I don't. Oh, well, I did have sort of an act at one point. It was just a modified guitar, and I could play the bass and guitar lines at the same time with a drum machine. I use the sound of that for the intro to the Dubcast, my little theme music there.
Oh, okay.
That's an old recording from like the 1980s or something, 1990s.
That's awesome. I didn't know where that actually came from, but it's great that we use it.
I'm playing that with no overdubs or anything. That is the all those sounds I generated live. The bass and the guitar parts and the drum machine is all going onto a cassette machine at one time. Yeah,
but that's a recording from a tape.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. Well, if you listen carefully, you can tell that my timing is a little bit off. I'm not quite playing on the beat, but yeah.
So you still have that guitar?
I do, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah, I dusted it off a while back, and still I used to spend more time soldering on that guitar than actually playing it or practicing it, because it's all these buttons to control the drum machine and the electronics and everything, so it was complicated. But I still have it. I could make new recordings from that if at some point, if I get the drum machines more or less working.
Very cool. Okay, well, let's get on with Dubcast number 14 then.
All right.
Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is Dubcast number 14. And in this episode, I'll tell you about racing stories, racing in a kayak. And I will also have a song that has become the effective Greenland national anthem. Goes by the title of Silasuak Takuyuk, which means, have you seen the world? Well, the first year I went to Greenland, 2004, I hadn't really trained for racing, not in any substantial way, but I did the races, I participated. And the long distance race, the longest one, it's about 10 miles, depending on how they set it up. And a distance of that magnitude, you tend to reach your cruising speed. The pack spreads out pretty far, and there isn't too much jostling back and forth. The fast guys are way ahead, and they stay way ahead, and the slow guys pull to the back, and you sort of find your station and try to maintain that. And this was in Qaqortoq in South Greenland, out into the fjord. They'd set out the race course. And there was a guy ahead of me named Carl, one of the local guys in Qaqortoq, Kayak Qaqortoq. And I could see he was maybe 100 yards ahead of me. And the strength I had, the speed I had, at our relative cruising speeds, I wasn't going to catch him. But there are these situations that come up, such as there are rescue boats, chase boats out there to make sure everybody's safe. In case somebody goes over, they can swoop in and pull them out. And if you get tired, if you can't continue for whatever reason, you can just say, that's it, I'm out. And then they bring your kayak back on the boat, and you quit the race. So at these markers where you have to go around them, go way out into down towards the end of the fjord, then you come around. They put up a float in the water there, and you have to turn around that and come back. And then various places there'll be a motorboat stationed with drinks. They have some whatever sports drink kind of thing to keep yourself hydrated. So each kayak will come up to this boat, and there'll be somebody there holding out a cup of the juice, and you grab the cup and you drink it as fast as you can. Well, I just tend to not be in such need of hydration, so I don't have to drink. This is the way I operate. I don't drink anything. Didn't feel the need to have any liquid intake. So I figured that this guy in front of me, Carl, when he slows down to get this drink and stops, that'll give me some time to catch up to him. I may not catch him completely, but I'll make up some speed, makes up some of the distance. So that occurs, and I get up a bit closer to him. And working it carefully over time, I managed to come up right behind him. And then I get right in his shadow there in the water. And I had so little experience with racing, I wasn't even familiar with the concept of drafting. You know, it's what bicycle races are all about. You get behind somebody and it's much more efficient, so you can rest up while they break the wind ahead of you, and then when you make your move, you pull out in front, hopefully towards the end of the race, and then he can't catch up with you if you do it right. So I'm paddling behind this guy, and I'm feeling, you know, the effect of the drafting, that it's much easier to paddle, and I'm actually almost resting. You know, I've been exerting myself for the last hour or two, and I'm cruising along. Wow, this is amazing, and I'm looking over for the chase boats. I'm thinking, this has got to be illegal. They're going to come and tell me I have to back off, because this is so much less effort than straight out into the water and the waves by myself. And this is the second half of the race, so we're on our way back to the finish line. And I concluded after enough time went by that it wasn't against the rules to do that. So I'm relaxing there and getting myself rested up for the final push. And so this guy, Carl, in front of me, he didn't speak a whole lot of English, but he had a few words. So suddenly he turns his head back and says, Dubside, my shoulder, it hurt me. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information, but okay, your shoulder hurts. All right. And then we go on a little further. My shoulder hurt me. So at this point, I'm feeling fairly well rested, and I decide, you know, he's maybe slowed down somewhat, so I've got some extra energy. So I pull out behind him to the side and start paddling and pull up next to him, and I'm good to go. And I keep on paddling, and I pass him. I'm like, okay, dude, see ya. If your shoulder's hurting, that is not my problem. And I dig in a little harder and increase the distance a bit more, and it kind of throws off your pace to actually turn your head all the way around and look to see who's behind you if they're farther back. So I don't bother. Like, he's gone. I'm ahead of him. I'm good to go. Past somebody in this race, and we got another few miles more to get to the finish line. So I'm feeling pretty good paddling along, and we get to I get to maybe it's maybe a mile to the finish. You know, there's a ways to go, and there's a final bend. You come around into where the harbor is, and in about a half a mile before that final bend, you know, the fastest guys in this race have already finished. They're been way ahead of me, but I'm holding my own position. So half a mile before the final bend, out of the corner of my eye, I see this little bow of a kayak, and I turn, and it's Carl. And he's got some momentum going, and he passes me. In fact, he smokes me. And I had just been exerting myself too much to even catch up with him. And he finishes the race way ahead of me. And I thought, wow, through a language barrier, he was able to talk trash and psych me out. Had to hand it to him. I guess the shoulder-hurting ruse was just a ploy to get me overconfident. But whatever the intention was, it worked. This was the 35 to 49 age category, and I think they also put the over 50s in with us, and maybe the upper teens. But the 20 to 34-year-old group with Maligag, they had a longer course and raced at a different time during that day. But that allowed me to watch those races from the shore. And Maligag would just explode off the starting line, and people couldn't even draft him, not even right there at the beginning of the race. He would just widen that distance from then on for the rest of the race and finish way ahead. It was quite amazing to watch. And I didn't realize till later, when I got to know Maligiak better, that performing at that level isn't something you can just do automatically. He trains for those races. For when there's going to be a competition that he knows he's going to be entering that summer, and he knows he'll be able to go to the competition, he starts 5-6 months out in front of that. In the wintertime, he's doing his cardiovascular, running, working out in the gym and things, for just to condition himself for those long distances and the training, and that's what goes into those incredible performances when the race takes place. And the times I've done instruction with him and had other people want to compare their stroke to him, he'll do a little race with them and just play with them, just at will pull in front of them, let them catch up right behind him and think they're doing well, and then just go whenever he wants to. He's quite the racer, but there are limits to his abilities. And I one time we were doing a class, and in just overestimating how powerful he was, I had two people in the class do a tug of war. You tie your kayaks together and you pull against the other. And I said, I want two people to tie on, and Maligiak will take two against one, figuring that'd be a good way to demonstrate how powerful his stroke is. Well, that is an extreme test, and he couldn't pull two people at once. I was thinking he was Superman, but he's human. Now, back then, there was a guy in the 35 to 49 group, a Greenland guy in the age group I was in, who was the fastest then, won all those races. And this guy has been to the U.S. many times. His name is John Peterson. And you have to qualify when you say John Peterson, because there are other people have that same name that are involved in kayaking. So there's a guy in California, an American named John Peterson. And there was a fellow named John Peterson in the early days of the Greenland Championship in the 1990s, who had won the title a couple times. But he's long since not been involved in kayaking. But this John Peterson is from Eqqissineq. Very nice guy and can speak English quite well, which is one of the reasons they've brought him to this country several times. And in the races, there was one year, it was in Qaqortoq again. I think it was a different time from the first time I was there. And they laid out the race course, out into the fjord and way down further and coming back, the long distance race. And he had taken a kayak out to do the race. And I didn't realize some of the finer points of these races. You have to select the kayak that fits the conditions. And he saw that there wasn't a whole lot of wind out there, in the bay where the harbor was. You could see it was fairly flat water. So he had a couple kayaks to choose from for a race, because he's the high-level racer. So he took one that had a longer water line and not as pronounced a bow. So it would be faster. A longer water line is just it's theoretical. Boat's whole speed is determined by the length of the vessel. So, but it didn't have a lot of overhang in front, so it wouldn't ride the waves as well. But if there weren't waves, if it was flatter water, it would be fine. So he used that kayak to race with. But he miscalculated, because out there around the corner into the fjord, the wind did kick up, and it got stronger during the course of the race, which meant that the waves were coming, breaking over the front of the kayak and then hitting him, getting him wet, and the wind chills you a little bit, and I believe that kayak wasn't as stable as some of his other ones. And he said he capsized a couple times out there. He rolled back up, but getting drenched like that in the middle of the race with wind, it'll wear on you. In that particular race, there were several of the other racers in his group that did give up. They called the chase boat over and said, I can't take it anymore. And they put their kayak on board and were given a ride back in, which is not the proudest moment for a competitor. It made a useful lesson to remember for me that the gear selection can be critical in those races where the competition is very strong. Now, usually on the last day of the competition, they have the relay race. and this is done in teams of 3. And you can combine the age groups. So I think everybody over 14 is all together. Then the kids race are the under 14s. So there's usually an A team and maybe a B team for each town. So the Kayak Eqqissineq will have their fastest guys on the A team, and Kayak Qaqortoq, where Maligak is from, on his team, he of course is on the Qaqortoq's A team. So we were in Eqqissineq this year. I think this was 2009, and I was asked to be there was the guy, a couple Americans there. It was Marcel Rodriguez from Oregon. Was racing. He'd brought his daughter McKinley there. She had quite an amazing time. I'll tell you more about that at a different Dubcast. And there was this guy Richard Rogers, also from the Seattle area. And so we formed an American team, and it took some coaxing for me to get Richard to agree to participate. He was there mostly just to enjoy Greenland, and his wife Jeanette was there. She was a little bit more intent on the competition. So I convinced Rich. I said, look, just think of it as an enjoyable paddle to go out there on the race course. You don't have to try for speed. Just that there'll be chase boats there to keep you safe in case the wind kicks up or you fall over. But so just hey, if it's opportunity. You're only going to be in Greenland probably this one time, so you might as well make the most of it. So I prevailed on him. So he agreed. Okay, he'll do the race. So we had Marcel was first, and then Richard was going to be the second. I was going to be the final leg. And so the Qaqortoq's A team had Maligak was doing the final. You call it the anchor leg, the last part of it. And on the Eqqissineq team, John Peterson was going to be on the final round. So we got the first guys, first team, a member of each team took off, and we didn't. The final guys may not even get in the water yet because it'll take them. Now that course was maybe like 2 miles or so it'll be 20 minutes or so before if the fastest one comes back around. So the first team goes out, first leg of each of the race, and the Eqqissineq had a guy, Eqqissineq, who later became the president of Qaqortoq, and he's pretty fast. And he was riding against the Qaqortoq guy was Jorgen Leander, a good friend of Maligak's. And Jorgen is good, but that particular day, Eqqissineq was a bit faster. And Eqqissineq got maybe 50 yards, maybe like 20 or 30 seconds ahead of him, which is, that's something to consider. So they each hand off to their second guy. And Maligak's team has got Yafet Davidson. Yafet's quite the jokester. He's one for always having fun. He's a funny guy. So they're out there doing laps. And at this point, my team, Richard, is quite a ways behind the others, but that's okay. We're just enjoying ourselves. And soon enough, every team has their final guy there on the finishing line, waiting for the second person to come through and hand off. It's a Norsok throwing stick. They hand off to you, and then you take that like taking the baton. So I'm there with John Peterson and Maligak and some of the others, and we're waiting, watching to see who's coming first. And so we look, and there is the Eqqissineq guy, and he has got about 30 seconds ahead of Yafet, which means that John Peterson is going to get the Norsok first. And Maligak is going to start this race about 30 seconds behind John Peterson. And Richard is way back, and I know I won't see him for a bit. But I was considering right then and there to just get off, quit the race, get off the water, because I wanted to see this finish. This is going to be a race. Maligak starting 30 seconds behind John Peterson. Now we're going to see who can really race. Well, I didn't quit the race. I went ahead and continued. When Richard came around, I took the Norsok. So I didn't get to witness what the excitement at the end there. But to give you an idea of the relative times, I finished the race. Our team, I think it was about an hour and a half to do 3 times around the course. The Maligak and John Peterson, they were more about an hour and 3 or 4 minutes. But when they came around the final time, with Mulligak having started about 30 seconds behind John Peterson. Mulligak was about 5 seconds in front of John Peterson, and he won the race. And that was a race to see. Well, there's a special technique said to have been used by the greatest seal hunters for making the kayak go very fast. It's called something like kussasatatut palnek. And that word kussasar refers to the sloping down in the front, or the head tilting down. And so when used with bottleneck paddling, that means that the bow of the kayak is tipping down into the water. And some descriptions talk about the paddle, pulling the paddle up at the end of the stroke, so you're pushing water up against the back of the kayak to make the kayak tilt down in front. Although that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you try it. And again in accounts from historical accounts way back and to later stuff, you get references to this special racing stroke. But it always seems to be the person describing it says, I can't do this, but the really top racers, that's what they used. And Mulligak and John Peterson both they say, we don't use that stroke. They're not exactly clear on the details of the precise way to perform this maneuver, but it seems to be well known that this was used way back in the day. And to add to the mystery, as far as I know, no one in this country has ever seen anyone perform this stroke. And I don't believe there are any movies that show this stroke being performed. And there is some question as to whether this stroke really exists, or is this some big inside joke they're pulling on foreigners, or we don't know. But if at some point in the future we were to analyze this stroke and figure this lost art of the super fast kayak stroke, revive it may be something the Olympic racers would pick up on if it's really that fast. But at this point we just don't know. It's a big mystery. Maybe there's archival footage with some guy in the background doing the stroke, and we just don't know what we're looking at yet. All right, here's a little refresher. If I said Uanga Naminek, and then I said Misingi Gilara, I would hope you would recognize immediately that is the first line of the Kayak song. And it goes Uanga Naminek, Misingi Gilara, Gisiyani Kayangomak, etc., etc. I've given you several versions of the Kayak song to practice with. Well, there is, if you were to meet, say, a Greenlander at random, if you met somebody in this country and they said, I'm from Greenland, if you sang them the kayak song, they may not know that song. The Greenlanders that are interested in kayaking know that song, but not every Greenlander does kayaking. So that you can't be absolutely certain that they're going to pick up on that song right away just because they're from Greenland. However, there's another song that the chances are anybody from Greenland is familiar with this song. And it's called Silasuak Takuyuk. And the author of this song was that guy who, I did a song before by him, the band Zikaza, and the guy Siva Fletcher, who is a very fine songwriter. So he wrote this song and recorded it quite a while back. And then it was recorded by a woman named Nina. And I'm very happy to tell you about Nina. She is one of the finest female vocalists out of Greenland. And she recorded this song. And I would venture to say that everybody who sings it nowadays, when they chime in, they'll do it at Tivoli at the end of the night. Everybody will come on stage and they'll all sing it together. Everybody sings it with Nina's version in mind. The original version is done pretty well, but the definitive version of this song is done by Nina. Mulligak is quite fond of this song, as is just about any Greenlander. I will give you some of the lyrics. It says, "Have you seen the world? It is more than the place we live in. It is so amazing to observe, to enter it, to go into it. We act like we are blind as if we don't care. And the chorus says, wake up, you live in it. It desires to be possessed, to be utilized and treated well. And I'll let you discover the second verse for yourself. But the last verse, this is where it really all comes together. It says, let me say one last thing. Take care of your land. You get the things you wish of it, as much as you desire. And if this disappears, you will also disappear. And it repeats the chorus the final time. So if you will indulge me, I will give you the Greenlandic lyrics along with the melody.
Sila suap takuiuk Inu finangi tsavuna Takush dugu tupinakat Pulash dugu isish dugu Tapping simasutut Pesatu gut sokuti ginagu Eqqissineq inu figa Bige kuvok atokuvok Ilu amik bare kuvok Na 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 Nu anasut begisatit Ilunut ilisapatit Asasatit Nu anarisatit Ilunut toqotapatit Silasu amitamatut Bigekuvok siyani ekuvok Eqqissineq inu figa Bigekuvok atokuvok Ilu amik bare kuvok Na 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 Nakatasumi ko kaslangan Siyaniyuk nunangguit Yumasati mitasunga Sapatit namatumik Tanami nungu sapat Ama iştit ama sagavit Eqqissineq inu figa Bigekuvok Qaqortoq Hidu amik parekuvok Na 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 na.
Now, you have to understand one thing. Nina sings it way better than that. Way, way better than that, okay? You haven't really heard this song until you've heard Nina's version of it. So I need you to go to atlanticmusic.gl. I hope you're well familiar with going to that website. And you want to look for the album by Nina. It's called Eqqissineq. That would translate to peace. Eqqissineq. It's the second song on the CD, Silarsuak Takuyuk. The other 9 songs are also quite worth listening to as well. And take it from me, if you meet anyone from Greenland, spend a little time, get to know them, and then go into the first few lines of that song, and they will be singing right along with you in no time at all. Well, thank you so much for listening. It's been my pleasure to bring these Dubcasts to you. And next week, that'll be episode 15, I'll go back to the Greenland paddle and the contentious nature. It's gotten better in more recent times, but back in the day, contentious nature between Greenland paddles and Euro paddles. And you remember all the way back in episode 1, I noted I had a good story involving Gordon Brown. And I would have to explain who Gordon Brown is. Well, that is coming up next week in episode 15. Until then, this is Dubside signing off for the Dubcast.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to give us a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions for Dubside, send us an email at dubcastwithdubside@gmail.com.